Welcome to Capitalize Your Finances, the podcast that's your ultimate guide to mastering personal finances and unlocking the secrets of entrepreneurship. Each week, we dive into the world of personal finance and business development and have fascinating conversations with industry experts, seasoned entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who share their insights, strategies, and stories to help you get ahead in life. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur looking to scale your business or someone just starting out on your financial path, this podcast is your go-to resource for inspiration and actionable insights.
Welcome back to Capitalize Your Finances. As always, I'm your host, Christopher A. Poniotu, certified financial planning professional, the Cap and Capitalize. And on today's episode, we are going to get into 5 sales strategies to help you land meetings. A little bit more sales, a little less financy, but I'll tell you what, the more money you make, the more finances you have to manage. So it all ties in. But before we get into the episode, the free tip of the week. Start to set aside a specific dollar amount from your paycheck between now and Christmas so that when the time comes for you to shop for presents, you won't be going backwards into debt, tapping into your emergency fund, or heaven forbid, taking out a loan to buy gifts for those that you love, unless you don't love anyone. And then it's sad. Think of the maximum dollar amount that you want to spend on this holiday season. And then once you do that, simply divide it by how many paychecks you have between now and then. And lickety split, your Christmas problems will be solved. I know the holidays are coming up. I know this recording will be coming out in October. And so by the time you listen to this, you're going to be so much farther ahead by the time Christmas comes around that this could be the first holiday season where you don't have to stress about getting gifts for those that you love. Also, a little side note on top of that, it is not about the gifts that you get. It is about remembering what occurred. Now, we are going to get into the 5 sales strategies to help you land meetings. And these are my top 5 favorites. So what we're going to do is we're going to rip through these. And once we rip through them, then I'm going to take it to the top and we're actually going to go through in detail what you're going to need to do with each one. So first one we're going to talk about is at networking events and how you're going to learn about people as much as possible. The second we're going to go over is when you are meeting with potential or existing business partners, treat your meetings with them no different than potential customers or clients. The third, until the sale is closed, make sure you continue to get your prospect or client on the book until the ink dries. Then we'll take a quick commercial break. Then we'll close out with number 4. When you're meeting with people, regardless if they're a potential client, business partner, etc., actually look them in the eyes. I'll tell you what I mean later. And then the final one is regardless if you have a service-based business or not, always make sure you have some form of reoccurring meetings or greetings. Now, let's take it from the top and go a little bit more in depth. So number 1, just to repeat, when at networking events, meeting as many people as possible, learn about them as much as humanly possible. So I made this mistake early on in my career. I was at every networking event you could possibly imagine. I believe I've mentioned this in the past on previous episodes. My goal for the first 2 years in my career of my practice was to be at 6 networking events a week. Now, that was very easy for me to do being single, didn't have any kids, tried to keep my circle concentrated, shall we say. And I was mission focused on just making sure that this business did not fail. Now, I'm not saying you have to go to 6 a week, but what I will say is when you get to these events, because I nailed the quantity side of things, I didn't necessarily execute on the quality side of networking. And so when I went to these events, I would go and my goal was to get as many contacts as possible, as many cards as possible. And then the next day, I would go and call these people back, get them on the books, et cetera, et cetera. I will not be telling you the whole tip and trick on how to get over that. That'll be for another episode. But I want to talk about the conversations that I had with these people. So when I was having conversations with prospects, and really at that point, when you start a business and you don't have any clients or customers, everyone is a prospect. Oh, you have a pulse and you're like, decent at best to talk to, great, you're a client. Like you're a perfect prospective client. And the mistake I made was every time I spoke to a possible person of interest, I would, in the back of my mind, try to convert it into, okay, how can I tell them about me and who I am and what I'm about? Because I need it. Like I really, really need it. I mean, if you guys have ever ran a business, at the beginning of a business, you know how tough it is to get clients. And it doesn't matter what type of business you have, whether it's a service-based business like in mine, where you're really trusting someone with your life savings in your life's financial situation, or something a little bit more, I don't want to say surface level, but quick, black and white, right? Like, hey, we do landscaping, or hey, we do lawn maintenance, or we do plumbing, like something like really turnkey, quick, and then hopefully you don't have to see them again. I can tell you that after about 2 years, it started clicking for me in the fact that, one, my business started to grow. And when your business is growing, you're going to relax a little bit more because hopefully, if you're managing your money prudently, you've got some money. But then secondly, what happens is when all of that occurs and you don't have to worry about that next dollar, you can be much more genuine with whoever you're talking to. And that's actually going to lead you to more sales on top of that. And so what I'm telling you to do is don't make the same mistake I did within the first 2 years of my career, not the quantity side of things, but when you're chatting with someone, all you want to do is make that conversation about them. Even if that means you do not get a sale from that conversation, your only goal is to learn as much about them and in some way, shape, or form, think about how you could be of help to them, whether that's directly or indirectly related. Now, what's going to happen in that conversation is somewhere along the lines, they are going to be subconsciously so enamored with how much you genuinely care, and you got to genuinely care, that they can't not ask you what you do. And then what happens is you tell them, but then you immediately turn it back to them and back to them and back to them. And by the time that conversation is done, whether there's a direct opportunity to work with you or indirect opportunity just to partner with you in some way, shape, or form, you just landed an eventual sale. So the second sales strategy we're going to go over is when you're meeting with potential or existing business partners, treat your meetings with them no different than potential or existing clients or customers. So I'm just going to use my business again because it's an easy one to go off of, just because, again, it's easily relatable to me, but then I'm going to translate it to you. So for me, and this is one of the things I'm blessed I found out early on, is it's pretty hard to just walk up to someone and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I just started this financial planning practice out of my apartment. Trust me with your life savings. That's a really, really hard sale. And so for me, what I quickly realized was, I need to find people that I can partner with from a business standpoint that are going to collectively assist as far as benefiting whoever my clients are. And so in our industry, that means we're working with CPAs, estate planning attorneys, business attorneys, sometimes tax attorneys, insurance agents, property and casualty agents, health insurance agents. I'm just trying to rattle off all these. So there's a lot of them there. Personal injury attorneys. And the reason why that is mission critical is, when a lot of people go into those possible business partner meetings, they think, okay, yeah, I'm going to wait for them to stop talking about themselves so I can show them my brilliance. And that way, my brilliance in what I do is going to naturally lure them into sending me business. That's not how it works. And it's actually the exact same framework that you just learned in the first strategy that I told you about. The difference is, and it's slight, you can be a little bit more direct with that. So if I'm meeting with a potential CPA, as an example, I'm going to learn everything about their practice. Oh, you work with tech executives, or you work with nonprofits, 403B plans, or Oh, you work with, old estate money within the community, something like that. But all I'm doing is learning about them. Now, eventually they're going to ask about what I do. And hopefully, if you have common clients that you can already refer back and forth and have that dialect and conversation, you could actually kind of role play with them and say, hey, what would you do in this situation? This is what I would do, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get this reoccurring meaning, which we'll talk about later on. But when you're chatting with clients and customers, you got to be a little bit more nuanced. But when it comes to business professionals, you can be a little bit more direct on how you ask for referrals and how you ask for opportunities. And so instead of asking, which we'll get into later on, something a little bit more nuanced, you can be a lot more specific of, hey, who do you know that would benefit from the services I provide? I would never ask that question, directly to a client or a customer, because it can come off a little sleazy. And in some cases, it can come off even desperate, even if it is really, really genuine. But when you're talking to a business partner, they kind of know, they know the dance, they know the game. Okay. Now let's use a different business that is not mine. So let's say, all right, here's a perfect one. Let's say you're in sales, in car salesman. And let's say that, you got your service directors at your dealership, but what if there are local, car, handymen that have their own privately owned business that you can go and refer them business, et cetera, et cetera. What you're doing is you're building a revenue pipeline outside of your immediate service community. Now, even though your dealership, they may or may not like that, because that could, in theory, take some business away from them. That's the classic short-term pain for the long-term gain. Because imagine if you had, let's just say, 7 independent mechanics that are all referring you sales opportunities. But because of that, your service may not get as many recurring service opportunities, and therefore revenue in that division may be down slightly. I would much rather have a portion of my business's revenue down slightly than trying to hog everything, and then unfortunately you're on an island. We see this actually in our business all the time. There are people that try to do financial planning, CPA work, and legal work all under one umbrella. I've just never been a believer in that because, frankly, one, you can't fire yourself if you're doing a bad job, and you're never going to fire yourself. Well, if one division of your business isn't doing well, you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. But then number 2, you've got all these independent specialists that are not going to be able to refer you more business. And so you're not going to be able to scale. So that's maybe even kind of a little a bonus, if you will, that you need to understand is I would much rather have you be very concentrated in what you do than try to do everything under the sun in your craft. Now, number 3, before we go to the commercial break, until the sale is closed, make sure you continue to get your prospect or client on your books until the ink dries. So I think anyone in sales will admit that they have had many premature celebrations, and it sucks. I mean, it's such a humbling kick to the teeth, or whatever body part you choose. And, I can tell you, actually, no, I can't tell you how many times I thought, yep, that initial meeting was great. That plan was incredible. We're coming back to sign paperwork, and we got it in the bag. And then it doesn't happen. And whether it's cold feet, whether they read something on the news, I don't know. Okay. Different reasons for everything. But the moral is it pays to be humble, and it also pays to make sure that until that ink dries and the money is in your business's account or in your pocket, if you work for a business, the sale is not done. Now, I want to take it a step further. Once you get someone as a client or even a customer, I want you to consistently meet with them because that is where the true service in salesmanship lies. A lot of people think, oh, I got the client, therefore my sale is done. No. You got a client or a customer, even after the ink dries, the sale has just begun because the best sale is impeccable service. And people just, I don't know why people do not understand that these days. And I can tell you this, before we go to the commercial break, what happens over time as your service compounds and you genuinely connect with people. A lot of people are like, well, I don't have any relationship with anyone I work with. That in the long run will absolutely destroy you. I'm not saying you got to love every single person you serve. Okay. You're not going to bed with them every single night. What you're doing is you're doing the best job for every single person that comes through your door. But if you don't have a genuine connection with anyone you're working with, especially your top clients, which doesn't necessarily mean the people that bring in the most money. It could be the people that you just connect with the most because they're great people. You're setting yourself up for a really sad life in business or just your professional career in general. So the more genuine your connections are over time, that is where your sales is going to compound in a massive way. So with that, stick around. We're going to hit the commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to close out with the last 2 sales strategies to help you land meetings.
Are you ready to transform the way you approach sales? This episode is sponsored by the second book in the Capitalize series, Capitalize Your Sales, the all-in-one sales framework that saves you from ever struggling again and teaches you how to sell with sincerity, which dives deep into the art and science of driving sustainable growth. Packed with strategies that go beyond surface-level techniques, this book will help you understand what it takes to truly connect with clients, build long-term relationships, and close deals. Whether you're looking to fine-tune your sales craft or break through to the next level, Capitalize Your Sales offers a roadmap to success designed for today's fast-paced business world. Head on over to your favorite bookstore, order today, and start capitalizing your sales immediately. And now, back to the episode.
Welcome back to the show. We're going to close out with the last 2 of the 5 sales strategies to help you land meetings. And number 4, now this one's going to get a little bit more profound and intimate, okay? When you're meeting with people, regardless if it is a potential client, existing client, business partner, you name it, actually look them in the eyes. Now, why am I saying that? That's obviously very self-explanatory. But I'm going to tell you more in depth why looking someone in the eyes is super valuable. So there are 3 types of people that you need to know about when it comes to sales. There are those that are visual, there are audible, and then there's people called kinesthetics. The reason why I lay those 3 out is you need to quickly figure out who the heck you are talking to be able to figure out where their eyes are traveling so you can actually figure out if they are telling the truth or lying. And that's going to be really valuable for you because if you don't understand any of this and you're just talking to someone and they're telling you all these things, you really can't take their word at face value. Now, most people are very genuine, okay? But some people get a little, maybe they get a little sensitive with information that they're giving you for whatever reason. And that's fine. But with what you do, whatever it is that you do, your job is to provide the absolute best service to whoever it is you're talking to. And by understanding what type of person you're talking to and looking at their eyes and matching their verbal cues, what's going to be really cool is you're going to be able to unlock who they are to the point where they can't lie to you. So for example, let's just use a car analogy because it's really, really easy. And someone says, or I ask someone, what do you like about this car? And let's say the guy I'm talking to says, man, I love how that BMW 5 Series looks. I just love it. I don't know. It's just the look. It's sleek. It's sexy. It just shines beautifully when the sun hits the front. I love it. Okay, well, clearly they're visual. They're a visual type of learner, and they're a visual type of sales connector. So when you're talking to someone, whether you're selling a car, you're selling a plan, you're selling an HVAC service, it really doesn't matter. You are responding in having a conversation, in asking questions of, okay, does this look like what you envisioned? Okay. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Does this is this fitting? Is this completing your picture? Right? Things where you're asking them, hey, is this working? Are we going in the right direction? But are we visually going in the right direction? Okay. If they're audible, what do you like about the car? Man, I love how that engine roars. I just rev the engine, and hearing that, man, that sound, it grinds my gears in the best way. They're inaudible. And so then you would ask them, or answer with them, okay, how does this plan sound? Does this have a nice ring to it? Okay, nice little play on words. Audibles absolutely love that. And then when it comes to kinesthetics, it's more feely. So how are you feeling about this? Okay, are we on the wavelengths here? Are the vibes aligning, so to speak? It's one of those things. Now, kinesthetics are not that common. I think it's about 5% of people. So if you don't know if they're definitely not visual and they're definitely not audible, then by de facto they're kinesthetic. But just by knowing those, you're going to get infinitely farther ahead when you're meeting with these people. And what's cool is and let me actually backtrack on something. And I want to be crystal clear on this. This can be used incorrectly. It can be used in a very sleazy manner, because then you're just doing it to unlock a potential next sale. And for those of you that actually do that, I'm sorry. And you know what? I'm going to pray for you, because eventually that's going to come back and bite you. But if you know that you are, first off, if you believe in what you're providing and you're selling with a genuine heart, and all you want to do is better whoever it is you're talking to with what you have, and you use this as a tool to get to that void that you can fill for whoever you're talking to, that's where the money really lies here. Now, one thing too I want you to note is, and as far as the eyes, you might have to snag the book coming out, but when it comes down to looking at someone's eyes, matching their verbal cues, matching their body language, which we'll get into in later episodes in the year, you're probably going to think to yourself, even the most genuine people, because I get this criticism a lot. They go, well, it seems kind of sleazy though. Like, even though I am genuine about what I do and I get what you're saying, will they pick up on that? First off, they won't. Like, whoever you're talking to will not, unless they've, listened to this episode. But then secondarily, what's really cool is the only thing, and I'm saying the only thing that results from doing all of this in a genuine way, is you become an infinitely better listener. You know how hard you have to focus on someone when you're looking at their eyes and where they're moving? You're listening to what's coming out of their mouth. You're looking at their body language to mirror it accordingly, and you're matching their verbal cues. You have to be a brilliant listener, and that's all that's going to happen, which is going to land a lot more sales and meetings. And the final sales strategy to land you meetings, regardless if you have a service-based business or not, always make sure you have some form of reoccurring meeting or greeting. And don't be afraid to ask. So if you are in some type of service-based business where there is just natural recurability with your clients, this is kind of self-explanatory. However, it's only self-explanatory if you know after the fact it's self-explanatory, because I can tell you early on in my career, it was one of those things where I just assumed, I just need to meet with someone once a year and I'm good. That is a huge missed opportunity that I had on my part. And it's a huge missed opportunity that you have on your part. And it doesn't really matter what type of service you're in. Sure, you could be a financial planner, CPA, attorney. You could be a social media manager. You could be an insurance broker. You could be a outsourced CFO. Like there's a number of different service-based businesses out there. Well, when in doubt, I would meet every 90 days. Now, at a minimum, it doesn't mean that you're just hammering your clients' phones or emails all the time. But I'll tell you what, every 90 days, it's a nice, comfortable time frame. One, it's nice to check in every 90 days. Two, 90 days is also 3 months. So a lot can happen in 90 days and also not a lot can happen in 90 days. And 90 days is another interesting thing where it's just long enough where time has passed, but it's just short enough where if you ask someone to do something and they haven't done it, you can check back in. And that's where I come up to the don't be afraid to ask part of this tip. So let's say that you ask someone, hey, who do you know that would value our relationship that we have? They go, whoa, I haven't really thought of that. You didn't really ask for a referral. You just asked for like a business relationship, whether that's a professional that we work with or a direct referral. And then after 90 days, nothing's happened. And you go, hey, I know, I was going to ask this because I wanted to ask it again. You ask it in a playful way. And they go, I haven't really thought of anyone. Okay, well, you know what? Next time we chat, right? If you could think of anyone, I would absolutely love that. And you just let it go. And then you kind of make it a game. And then after the third quarter, they go, I knew you were going to ask that. I've got 3 people that I want to introduce you to. And then you just compound that over and over and over. Now, 3 quarters, that can be a long time to wait, especially when you're growing your business. But what you also need to learn too is once you start filling your calendar more and more and more, especially when you're just starting a business, you have all the time in the world. So Oregon Ducks are on my mind. The quicker you fill your calendar to the fullest, then what happens is your calendar gets filled with possible opportunities. You get a lot better at getting as much quality out of all those meetings. And then within a year, your sales are going to skyrocket. And if you don't have a service-based business, okay, and I'm just going to use a car salesman just because it's the easiest one to think about from a transaction standpoint. You actually do have a service-based business because let's say someone goes and buys a car and they lease it. Well, how long is the lease? 3 years. Well, guess what? You're going to see them in 3 years. So you know what you should do? You should say, hey, what I like to do, I'm a little bit more hands-on than most car salesmen out there. I like to check in with clients for the first year, basically semi-annually. And then in year 2 and 3, I'm going to call you just to check in and see how your car is doing. Does that sound fair to you? And whoever your client is going to go, or customer is going to go, absolutely, that sounds great. But what if they bought a car and they kind of just want to run this thing into the ground? Well, you know what? You're going to still check in with them every 6 months. Because if something happens to the car, maybe there's a service that could be provided, or maybe you're just connecting with these people. That gives you the opportunity to go, who do you know that would benefit from the relationship that we have? It's the same formula. And so even though it's a one and done sale, because normally when you buy a car, like for my car personally, I'm going to drive it into the dirt, hopefully. What's going to be nice is you just cracked the hardest code to crack in one-off transactional sales, which is reoccurability. So that really closes out today's episode on the 5 sales strategies to help you land meetings. I know we got into a lot of sales strategy too. Let me know any questions that you have on this. And if you're struggling with figuring out how to sell your services, shoot me a DM. Let me know. I'd be more than happy to talk to you. And I'd be more than happy to answer your questions directly on the podcast. So until next week, as always, keep capitalizing. As always, thank you for joining me today. If you have questions about today's episode or any personal finance questions, please reach out to me at Cap and Capitalize on Instagram, Chris at capitalizeyourfinances.com, or via our website, capitalizepodcast.com. If you want more Capitalize Your Finances content, head on over to capitalizepodcast.com and check out our blog, free resources, book, and online course. As always, I'm your host, Christopher Paniotu, Certified Financial Planning Professional, the Cap and Capitalize. And until next time, keep capitalizing.
These materials are provided for general information and educational purposes based upon publicly available information from sources believed to be reliable. The information in these materials may change at any time and without notice. Christopher Paniotu is a registered representative with and securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, and member FINRA SIPC.